All right, let's get into it then. Queen Elizabeth II. I mean, just think about someone who was there right through almost a century of massive global change.
Yeah, an incredible constant, someone who really represented duty.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into her life. It's quite a story from a princess not really destined for the throne to, well, the monarch who saw it all.
And our mission, if you like, is to pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising bits, and really understand her impact based on, the narrative of her life.
Okay, so starting at the beginning, it's striking, isn't it? She wasn't born in a palace.
No, not at all. A London townhouse in 1926. Her father was the second son of King George V, so she wasn't directly in line. Not initially.
It feels almost ordinary in a royal context. And that nickname, Lilibet.
Gives you a sense of that early family life, doesn't it? Quite close, relatively quiet for royals.
And the homeschooling history, languages, music.
Yeah.
Pretty standard for the aristocracy then.
Right, but even then you see hints. The horses and dogs, that passion stayed with her, a sort of constant.
And descriptions of her as, well, calm, serious, but still playful with her sister Margaret. You get a feel for that inherent steadiness.
That quiet upbringing makes the next event even more dramatic. When she was 10, the abdication.
Ah, yes, her uncle, Edward VIII, choosing to marry Wallis Simpson.
And that wasn't just, a family issue. It was a constitutional crisis. It threw everything up in the air.
It really makes you think about that clash, doesn't it? Personal desire versus public duty. A theme that keeps coming back.
Definitely. And boom, suddenly her father is King George VI.
Which means 10-year-old Elizabeth is now the heir apparent. Her whole life just shifted instantly.
And imagine that. Her education had to change completely. Suddenly it's government, world affairs, leadership training.
How do you even prepare for that kind of role?
Well, she studied the British Constitution, had lessons with the Archbishop of Canterbury. The groundwork was laid, and she started appearing more in public. Getting used to the spotlight, I suppose.
Then, just as she's finding her feet in this new role, World War II breaks out. She was 13.
Must have been intense. The uncertainty, the blitz. Many kids were evacuated, but she and Margaret stayed at Windsor Castle.
And that first radio broadcast she did at 14?
Yeah, speaking to other children who were separated from their families, apparently her voice was very calm, very clear, a little bit of reassurance in a scary time.
You can almost hear the future queen there, that kind of quiet authority.
It showed an early grasp of the symbolic power she held even then, and later actually joining the war effort.
Right, the Auxiliary Territorial Service. At 18, training as a driver, a mechanic.
Yeah, that's quite something. The first female member of the royal family to be in the military like that, she clearly wanted to contribute, to do her bit.
Definitely breaks the mold of just a figurehead. And then, after the war, Prince Philip enters the picture more seriously.
They'd met earlier, when she was 13 apparently. They started writing letters.
A wartime romance, almost. But his background was, well, different. Royal Navy hero, yes, but
not landed gentry in the UK. No vast fortune. Prince of Greece and Denmark, but exiled. It wasn't a straightforward match in some eyes.
shows her strength of conviction, though.
Mm-hmm.
Believing in him, his character.
Absolutely. She saw his loyalty, his courage, their engagement in 47. It caused a stir. Excitement, sure, but maybe some reservations, too. Society was still adjusting.
And the wedding. November 1947, Westminster Abbey. Must have been spectacular.
A real symbol of hope after the war, wasn't it? This young couple looking forward. It was a huge boost for morale and the start of, well, an incredibly long partnership.
Okay, so that brings us into the post-war era. A world really trying to rebuild, find its footing.
And then, completely unexpectedly, comes 1952. She's just 25.
On that Commonwealth tour, in Kenya, of all places.
And the news arrives. Her father, King George VI, has died. He'd been unwell, but it was still a shock.
Imagine getting that news so far from home, knowing instantly.
Yeah.
Your life has changed forever. queen.
The journey back must have been surreal. Leaving as a princess, returning as queen.
And the public reaction back home. Mourning the king, of course, but also.
Also looking to her, this young woman, and apparently she showed incredible calm, incredible strength, even in her grief. That must have been reassuring.
Then the preparation for the coronation took over a year, didn't it?
Yes, June 2nd, 1953. Westminster Abbey again, a massive historical event.
And the big thing, it was televised globally.
A huge deal, bringing all that ancient ceremony, the crown, the scepter, the orb, right into people's homes. It really changed the relationship between the monarchy and the public.
And amidst all that pomp, you have her making that deeply personal vow, service,
Yeah.
for her whole life.
A solemn promise. And at the same time, the world map is changing. The British Empire is evolving.
Into the Commonwealth of Nations. And her role shifts too, right? Head of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, less about direct rule, more about connection, friendship, shared values. It was a different kind of leadership.
Those early Commonwealth tours she did with Philip must have been crucial for that.
Absolutely. First British monarch to visit many of those countries, Australia, New Zealand. The crowds were apparently enormous, really enthusiastic. It helped build those new bonds.
Meanwhile, back in Britain, the 50s and 60s, big social changes happening.
Yeah, a lot of questioning of old ways, new music, new attitudes. And through it all, she was this constant presence, a symbol of stability, maybe.
And her relationship with her prime ministers.
Yeah.
Starting with Churchill. Right?
Those famous weekly audiences. Private meetings, giving advice, asking questions, sharing insights from her unique perspective. Always neutral, of course.
Never getting involved in the politics itself.
Exactly. Providing continuity, experience, a role unlike any other.
And we have to remember, she's also raising a family through all this. Charles born in 48, Anne in 50, then Andrew and Edward later in the 60s.
Balancing those immense public duties with being a mother must have been incredibly challenging.
And even then, people were starting to question the monarchy's role, weren't they? Calls for it to modernize.
Oh, yes. That debate has been ongoing for decades. But her belief seemed unwavering, the crown, as a symbol of duty, of service, of tradition.
So her early reign really set the tone. Quiet strength, dedication, building respect.
Definitely laid the foundation for the very long road ahead.
Okay, let's shift into the 80s and 90s. Chapter 3. Things get, well, more complicated.
Yeah, these decades brought significant challenges, both personal and public, despite that image of, unflappable calm.
The focus really shifted to the younger royals, didn't it? Especially with Charles and Diana.
That wedding in 1981, the fairy tale wedding, watched by millions, billions maybe. Unbelievable hype.
But behind the scenes,
Yeah.
it wasn't quite the fairy tale.
No. Very different personalities, it seems. Charles, quieter, more traditional perhaps. Diana, very warm, emotional, connected with people in a new way. And the media attention, relentless, especially on her.
You could see the cracks appearing, even publicly. The Queen tried to help, apparently, guide them.
Reports suggest she did try to support them both, but the situation just unraveled. Which leads us to 1992.
Ugh. Ah, the Annus Horribilis. Her horrible year.
Just think. Charles and Diana separate. Andrew and Sarah Ferguson separate. Princess Anne gets divorced. And then Windsor Castle catches fire.
Wow. All in 1 year. It must have felt like the institution itself was under siege.
And yet she kept going, kept doing the job, the meetings with the PM, the public events. That sense of duty remained unshakable.
But the personal toll must have been immense. Then Charles and Diana finally divorced in 96. And then the following year.
August 1997, Diana's death in Paris. Just shocking, 36 years old.
The outpouring of grief was unprecedented.
Global.
It really was. And initially, the public reaction towards the royal family and the Queen was quite critical.
Yeah, that whole thing about the flag at Buckingham Palace, people felt the response was too slow, too cold, maybe out of touch.
There was definitely that perception for a moment, a real disconnect between the public mood and the traditional royal reserve.
But then she came back to London and gave that live TV address, which was incredibly rare for her and very powerful. She spoke about Diana as, part of the family, as a mother. It was sincere.
And it seemed to turn the tide, didn't it? People saw her humanity, maybe?
I think so. It was a pivotal moment. And afterwards, you did see changes, a bit more openness, allowing cameras in more, showing more of the daily work.
And agreeing to pay income tax. That was a big step, too.
All part of rebuilding trust, showing they were willing to adapt at least somewhat.
But Britain itself was changing rapidly, too. More diverse, more modern. People still asking, do we need a monarchy?
Always that question. But the counter-argument was also strong. In a world changing so fast, maybe having that symbol of continuity, that stability she represented, was more important than ever.
And she kept up her global role, too. Meeting U.S. presidents, hosting Mandela, visiting places like China and Russia.
Maintaining those international connections, acting as sort of anchor in global affairs.
So the 90s, rough as they were, maybe showed a different side of her. Not just the monarch, but the mother, the grandmother, navigating really tough times.
Exactly. It made her perhaps more relatable in the long run, even through the difficulties.
Moving into the new millennium, Chapter 4. She's getting older, but still going strong.
Remarkable strength, really. An unwavering commitment. The 2002 Golden Jubilee, 50 years on the throne.
Huge celebrations. Parades, concerts, street parties everywhere. A real outpouring of affection and pride.
But that same year was also marked by immense personal sadness for her.
Right. Losing her sister, Princess Margaret, and then her mother, the Queen Mother, just weeks apart.
Imagine celebrating this huge public milestone while grieving such profound personal losses. She mourned quietly but carried on with her duties.
And this chapter highlights her adapting to the modern world, which is interesting.
Yeah, surprisingly so, in some ways. Getting into email early on, launching the royal family website, using social media later, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, making things like the Christmas speech accessible online.
Keeping up with the times.
And showing that sense of humor more.
The 2012 Olympics with James Bond.
That was brilliant. Her appearing in that short film with Daniel Craig, and the hint she might have parachuted into the stadium.
It was so unexpected, and people loved it. Showed a playful side.
And 2012 was also the Diamond Jubilee. 60 years. Another massive celebration.
The Thames River pageant. Incredible. By then, for most people, she was the only monarch they'd ever known.
She'd guided the country through so much history.
And family life continued to evolve. Charles marrying Camilla in 2005.
Quieter affair, that one.
And William marrying Catherine Middleton in 2011. That felt like a big modern moment for the monarchy.
And the Queen seemed supportive through it all, adapting to the changing shape of her family.
And globally.
Yeah.
Still that constant presence, right? Through crises, political shifts.
Still meeting all those prime ministers every week, offering that unique perspective, and being a symbol of unity during tough times, like the London bombings in 2005, visiting hospitals, offering messages of resilience.
And she stayed remarkably healthy well into her 90s, still riding horses, attending events.
Apparently believed staying busy was key, though you did see a gradual shift, some duties passing to the younger royals, but she remained absolutely central.
Until 2015, when she became the longest reigning British monarch ever, surpassing Queen Victoria.
An incredible milestone, met with worldwide praise for her endurance, her dignity, her reaction, typically modest, said it was just the result of living a long life.
So by this stage, she'd really become this sort of grandmother to the nation, hadn't she?
Yeah, beloved for that sense of duty, the calm leadership, that gentle humor, still adapting, quietly, purposefully, a shaper of history, not just a witness to it.
Which brings us to the final chapter, her last years, Chapter 5.
Still serving with that quiet strength and dignity, even into her late 90s, though, movements were slower, fewer public appearances, but mentally sharp, still with that wit.
Then came the huge loss in 2021, Prince Philip passing away.
At 99, after more than 73 years of marriage, their partnership was just fundamental to the modern monarchy.
And that image of her sitting alone at his funeral because of COVID rules. So poignant.
It resonated globally, didn't it? That shared experience of loss, even for a queen.
Yet even in her grief, she carried on, welcoming new prime ministers, meeting leaders, doing the Christmas message.
And she said those powerful words, "Grief is the price we pay for love," especially meaningful during the pandemic.
Then 2022, the Platinum Jubilee, 70 years, unprecedented for a British monarch.
History being made, and the country went all out again. Flags, parties, concerts.
And that amazing sketch with Paddington Bear.
Oh, perfect. The marmalade sandwich in the handbag. It just showed that enduring humor, that connection across all ages. Delightful.
But you could also see her health was declining during that period. Fewer appearances at the Jubilee events themselves.
Those balcony appearances felt significant. Maybe the last time many would see her in that setting.
And then the news came on September 8th, 2022. Her peaceful death at Balmoral, age 96.
The world just seemed to pause, didn't it? Such a constant presence for over 70 years. It truly felt like the end of an era.
The reaction in the UK was immense. Flowers piled up outside the palaces, the mourning.
And tributes poured in from all over the globe. Landmarks lit up, bells tolled, a worldwide sense of loss.
The state funeral was a huge global event. All that ceremony, tradition. But the core theme was duty.
A life of service, kept right until the very end.
And then her son became King Charles III. The monarchy continues, but it's different. Her memory is indelible.
Absolutely. Her legacy isn't just about the titles or how long she reigned. It's that quiet resilience, the comfort she provided, the way she adapted while holding on to her core values, that profound sense of duty.
A calm presence through decades of unbelievable change. A queen in spirit, really. A symbol of stability and maybe a reminder of the power of that quiet, steadfast leadership.
It's quite something to look back on, isn't it? The sheer sweep of history she lived through, from the post-war era right into the digital age, navigating all that change.
Yeah, her ability to remain that constant figure, that source of stability, is probably the defining feature of her reign, I think.
An extraordinary life, absolutely, built on duty, resilience, and that surprising ability to adapt when needed. It really makes you think about which parts of her story resonate the most personally.
It does. And maybe it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Considering those 70 years, through all that turbulence and transformation, what do you think was the most crucial way she managed to provide that consistent stability during times of such massive change? Something to ponder, perhaps?
That's a great question. Definitely food for thought.
Indeed. Well, that concludes our deep dive into the incredible life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. We hope you'll keep reflecting on the themes we've touched on today.